it's going to be somewhere near the market leaders if you've chosen the right market for it. It's not going to be some small fraction because that's a big enough number to make it look like a good deal. So look at market comparables. Second part of the financial model is to think in terms of what are the future capital requirements, how much money will you need, and when will you need it. And the real key to this is that a lot of entrepreneurs don't pick up on right away is the serious milestones for most investors are risk reduction. The milestones aren't necessarily, oh, we're more satisfied now that the market's big. They're coming into you saying, this is a big market. That's pretty much the basis of their investment. But what they want to see is, okay, your solution looks really good on paper. Will anyone pay something for it? You don't have to produce profitable, you don't have to be a profitable business to prove that you've got a great opportunity that's a lot less risky than it was before anyone bought it. If you could show that just on an operating basis, people are buying your product at a reasonable price, that's a huge risk reduction milestone, even if you're losing a lot of money as a company. So focus on reducing risk as the major milestone. Lay out what you think are the likely time, nature, and size of alternative financing options. As you probably know, or should know, venture capital financing is the most expensive kind of financing that's legal in the United States. So you don't want to do it more than you have to. So think in terms of your model, or when will you be developing some assets? Are you going to have serious equipment? You're going to have to buy some equipment that big drug companies use? Well, you might be able to get a venture lesser to do that for you. You know, maybe 12% interest and 5% warrant coverage sounds expensive. It's a lot less expensive than the implicit cost of venture capital. Maybe you'll start having some receivables. Maybe you'll have customers or partners who are willing to give you some upfront licensing for access to some technology earlier, for access to some other markets. So be thinking in your model in terms of ways to reduce not only the capital needs globally, but the needs for pure equity. And finally, lay out in your financial model what you think reasonable exit strategy and timing considerations are. Think here in terms of comparables. Go out and find comparable companies. If you're a software company, life is easy because Microsoft and Google and everyone else acquires software companies all the time. So go out and find some comparables. Find what the metrics are in your market. Is it times sales, times revenue, times profit, etc. And realize that at the end of the day, your investor is going to have to say at an early stage startup, if this deal works, I can make 10 times my money. Maybe more, but if the deal works, I'm going to make at least 10 times my money. Most deals don't, but in fact, from a venture capital perspective, and this could be another lecture, it's the deals that make 10 times your money, which 1, 2, or 3 out of 10 deals, 3 at the most, but 1, 2, maybe 3 deals that make 10x that return 90% of the fund's return. So they've got to do deals that have that potential, because a lot of the deals are going to fail. So things to include in the appendices, team resumes. You can have a narrative description of the team in the body of the document, but this is where you put the resume. Selected WOW supporting materials. If you've got, there was an article in a peer-reviewed journal around this technology, or it's a consumer product and you've got a great review from US News or something. Put in a select group of the best supporting materials that you have, and you can fill in details as appropriate. This is where you might include some background technical information of a non-proprietary character. Common mistakes: puffing, and as I said earlier, overstating third-party interest commitment. Credibility is very hard to earn back. I've actually, as a VC, received a pitch from someone that said they had a strategic partnership with one of the major pharmaceutical companies. It turned out to be a one-way non-disclosure agreement, where the pharmaceutical company didn't even agree to keep anything secret. So don't overstate third-party interest and commitment. Usually when an entrepreneur tells me that some corporate partner has basically said they're going to do this deal, 90%, it usually means about 5%. So unless you can really back it up, don't oversell, don't overstate, don't cherry pick information or overstate data. Again, if you do that, and as soon as you get caught on it, you're going to get caught well before the check is written, you're going to get caught. You've lost credibility and it can be very hard to get back. As I mentioned before, don't get over technical, save it for due diligence. Certainly don't talk about proprietary information in the plan, because venture capitalists and the vast majority of sophisticated angels simply aren't going to sign non-disclosure agreements. Does that mean they're all pure as the driven snow and never use information? No, they do. I could prove it in the deal I was once doing, because I got back a copy of my business plan and said, since we're not interested, we're sending you the original. And I suspect I know the portfolio company they shared it with. But again, that's another story. That doesn't, you're just not going to get them to sign NDAs, and the solution is simple. Don't include proprietary information in the plan. Do not talk about valuation in the plan. This is something that's different. If you're doing a private placement memo and you're going after individuals, not people who know something particular about the industry, if you're doing that, you may need a PPM, and a private placement memo will include a price. But when you're talking to sophisticated angels and VCs, the rule is, as one of them told me, they don't care what I think it's worth. They're going to do their own analysis anyway. So setting a price is probably going to get it wrong. And frankly, isn't the price you're going to charge for your deal going to depend on who the investor is? I mean, does Acme Ventures have to pay, did they get the deal for the same price that Kleiner Perkins gets it? Investors bring different value adds, and that should factor into the price too. So it's also, as I say, if you want to sell someone a Ferrari, you don't start when they walk into the lot by saying how much it costs. You start by getting them behind the wheel, right? Let them decide they have to have it before you start talking price. Finally, don't make it too long. Remember, it's a selling document. It's not a disclosure document. Your lawyers may not like to hear that exactly in those words, but at the end of the day, it's not a disclosure document, it's a selling document. That doesn't mean you can say things that aren't true in it, but it does mean that the due diligence is going to bring out what's really going on in the company. This document is designed to get people who want to test drive it. Finally, some extra points, some ways that you can, particularly if you're a less experienced entrepreneur, you can sort of set yourself apart and suggest a level of knowledge of the business a little beyond what they usually think, VCs, when they see a first-time entrepreneur. Go ahead and prepare a due diligence primer in advance. You know what investors are going to want to see. You know most of what they're going to want to see about your technology, about your market. You've done all that research about your market opportunity. So have a nice book or several loose leaf binders with various due diligence information so that when they request some background information, it's there, it's ready. Another good thing to do is engage or prepare equity incentive plan. A lot of times entrepreneurs just say, we own 100% and you're going to buy whatever percent. And that's kind of true, but in that transaction there's almost always going to be a third party coming in, which is the equity incentive pool, the pool to issue to future employees, et cetera, as incentive shares. So go ahead and think through yourself what you think the equity incentive model and commitment should look like, and include that. Have that available for people, for investors to look at. Yeah, here's what we think we'll need for a pool. And finally, you can do yourself a favor by engaging professional advisors, accountants, lawyers, who investors are likely to know and respect. They've seen before. No one wants to say that, have an entrepreneur come to them, and when you check out who their lawyer is, you find that, boy, most of the cases they've been involved in are medical malpractice or something, or they're your brother-in-law. You want to work with people, one, it sends a signal to the investors that you're serious and you know the players in this market. And two, frankly, it'll be more efficient for you and you're likely to get better advice and also better connected in the network if you use those kinds of advisors. So, thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Paul, you mentioned in the discussion of technology